This evening on TechVets, the podcast, we are talking to Donavin De Jongh, who left the Queen's Dragoon Guards just under 18 months ago, and he has just secured a job with Netcompany. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Just sort of getting into the flow of things. I've only literally been out out the army for a month now.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so I was out for a month and then I started work and I've been at work now for like 3 weeks. So it's been really busy, but I suppose the transition period, I haven't really had time to think about it, which is in a way a good thing because I've just gone straight into it. So I haven't had really time to sort of like get imposter syndrome and things like that. I've just had to be like, okay, well, it's starting. I don't have much time to think about it and let's just go ahead with it. So it's been, to be honest, it's been better than I expected, put it that way.
So, who did you serve with up until 3 months ago?
So I was with the Queen's Dragoon Guards. I initially spent my first sort of 6 years with PWR, which is like an infantry regiment. And then I transferred across to the Queen's Dragoon Guards, which is like it's a sort of formation reconnaissance light cavalry regiment. Um, and like done a few sort of operational tours and stuff like that with them. And I bought a house in Norfolk too, which was also quite a big thing in me transferring because recently I think a lot of people sort of just want to go to where home is because it's obviously a lot more comfortable. And I've got a reasonably young family, so that had an effect on sort of my choices too. And then after doing a few operational tours, my last one being Mali, um, I decided I needed to find a different focus just because of time away from family and stuff like that. And I was fortunate enough to sort of find TechVets and Netcompany, and the Netcompany sort of proposed a really good program to me, which was the service leavers program, which they sort of take in service leavers who are sort of within the last sort of 6 months of their time, and then they sort of start almost not immediately, but after a little bit of a break. To then go into sort of the IT sector. So yeah, a good start, I would say, and really enjoyable so far. I've loved every minute of it. Um, and I won't say I'm just saying that because it's me, because like I'm quite a sort of upfront and frank person, and if I wasn't enjoying it, I'd be like, oh, it's quite tough. But it's hard work. You have to put in, I suppose, what you put into it. The old saying is what you get out of it. But if you sort of understand your plan from early on and can sort of put that plan into practice, like everybody has the sort of right attributes to make a success of it.
So, what kind of skills, when you were in the PWRR and QDG, what skills or what did you do in those roles in the army?
So initially for in PWR, I was in the infantry. I left there as a section commander, so as a corporal, and then I went when I joined the QDG, promoted to sergeant, and then I was just really like a troop sergeant, so like ensuring people's administration was sorted out, looking after a fleet of vehicles, um, sort of just the sort of basics, ensure people were trained to the correct levels, um, that we had everything that we needed, everything was in working order, be that kit, equipment, vehicles, personnel, looking
Oh,
at the sort of wealth.
sorry, 2 seconds.
That's fun.
The dog's going nuts, which will mess up the audio. Um, so yeah,
And
take
then
back you were looking after fleets of vehicles and
yeah, sort of kit and equipment, the welfare of the sort of soldiers below me, or that worked with me, and then I got quite a I got into a new sort of tech trials and development project that was about to get launched into the army, and I sort of piggybacked on that to try and add some value and also just learn about the different processes and things that people have to go through as sort of project managers to deliver tech into the army, which was quite useful and really something that sort of that got me interested in the sort of project management side of life, the technology side of life, and how over the past 10 years the army has increased its sort of technology capability by at least tenfold. Because previous to that, like people are only now and just getting sort of their laptops and stuff like that in the military, where that's been a thing out in the normal world for years and years and years. So it just showed sort of they were reasonably far behind up into the past 10 years, which things have developed really quick. So that really sort of sparked my interest with the technology side of life. And then I went in and started like self-studying. Quite a lot of self-study about just different sort of technologies to do with sort of IT, be that the cloud, the cloud and its sort of capabilities really interested me. So I started studying for my AZ 900, which is Azure Fundamentals. And then I did a one-day course through TechVets and Netcompany. And they sort of once you do your day course, you do I think it's like 25 questions at the end, and if you get above 60%, you get a free exam voucher. So I done that and passed that exam sort of 2 weeks later after a bit more study, and then I went and done most recently a MS 900 course through the same sort of pathway of TechVets and Netcompany. And to sort of go along with that, with my resettlement, I done Agile PM, project management, and Prince 2, just to sort of understand the methodologies that go with it. But a big thing about this sort of project management thing is the terminology. So if most people use different terminology in different clients, but if you have a rough understanding of where the project is and where it's going, you can sort of pinpoint yourself back into that the basics of the terminology and understand what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And then I most recently also after that went and done an ITIL course, which is a sort of IT service management framework course. And I just really sort of, because I was really interested in sort of IT and had an understanding of where I wanted to go, I wanted to sort of cover most base layers so that if I did get put on an Azure Fundamentals project as a project manager, I could at least understand what the people that were the technical people on the project were talking about, when they were talking about building different solutions or migrations and so forth. So that you can just, I suppose, no one really wants a manager that doesn't understand what they're doing, because then you can't really manage because you don't understand. So that was my big thing, just trying to have the base knowledge of quite a variety of things to ensure that if I did get sort of put on a project, I'd be able to understand exactly where they are, understand what they need, and sort of what I can do to facilitate them to deliver the project quicker and sort of within the quality and stuff like that. And then yeah, sorry, I'm just going on. And then after that, I then applied for the Netcompany job as part of the service leavers program, and I was fortunate enough to get through the process and was offered a job. And I started 3 weeks ago. My first week was really sort of a introduction week, and then I got placed. I've been placed straight onto a project, which is really nice because it sort of throws you in the deep end, but within the sort of Netcompany environment, it throws you in the deep end, but it provides a lot of resources around you. So like all the managers, even the sort of senior managers, are very helpful. Like my first two or 3 days on the project, I obviously didn't really have an understanding of what to do at certain points, and it was just like call someone on Teams, ask them, and they sort of guide you through it. And it wasn't ever, I have never come across a situation where someone's like, oh, I'm just too busy. Even if people are busy, they'll sort of take their time to be like, either, oh, I'll signpost you to a different person, or or I can actually help you. Like, what do you need? Let me show you, share my screen, and so forth. So it was my first sort of week. I was in the deep end, but I really did enjoy it. And then my second week, I actually got put on an engagement seminar, so a client engagement seminar. And sort of what that really focuses on is how it runs a whole project life cycle. So from the discovery all the way through to the delivery, and sort of how we deal with the client, be that a sort of client that's unwilling to cooperate because you have to bring in a solution, they have to pay money for what they're getting delivered, and how you deal with those situations, which was really, really interesting because the people that were delivering the project, sort of the role play was actually really good, and because they've been in those situations, they could reenact it really well and like ask the hard questions, uh, sort of make you think about what you're saying, because sometimes those things are sort of contractually binding, and people will try and push you into a corner to try and get something out of it. But just understanding how to deal with those situations, those sorts of people, and then also go the whole way through the project life cycle. So, as I said, from the discovery, understanding what their requirements are and what we should deliver, to the design phases, that high level design phase of this is our solution that we've proposed. What do you think about it? Is it a yes or no? Having sort of phase gate assessments on it, and then into the detailed design. So really sort of working with the technical minded people of building the actual solution to ensure that it works, ensure that all the networks are correct, and so forth. And then the delivery. So ensuring that you can actually, at the end of it, deliver a solution that's going to work for the client and also be within budget and time constraints too. Um, and then this past week, as of Monday, I've just been back onto sort of my project, um, trying to find my feet again after a busy week before that. But really good, really, really sort of enjoyable. And I would definitely say to people that are sort of that are interested in technology and IT and stuff, to sort of push their way towards the TechVets thing. They provide so much, sort of opportunities, training that's delivered by sort of top class Microsoft trainers and stuff like that. So really jump at it with both hands. Try and self-develop as much as you can. Things don't just fall into your lap. You have to actually go out there and understand what you want and work for it. So yeah, that's sort of my story in a nutshell, I would say.
It sounds like you're full of beans, and quite rightly so, because most people, after their resettlement period, are still trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. But you sound like you've landed on your feet. What took you to the point of signing off? You mentioned kind of family and being in your own home. What kind of went through your
Yeah.
head before you pressed that button or those buttons?
I personally thought I would be there for 24 years. I'd do my full time. And I've said it to everyone, like even when I left the military, all the people around me said like we cannot believe that you've signed off. And I did love it. Like I loved it, and I was always like excited to do whatever it is. I enjoyed the sort of the camaraderie, the being around people, having a laugh, but still achieving things, and still sort of driving success. But it really sort of my my decision point became sort of my 12-year point, and also I was on a operational tour during COVID time, and when I left to Mali, my son was about 2 months old, and when I got back from Mali, he was 10 months old. And I just thought that like I wouldn't want to go through that again because like you just don't want to be put in those situations. And I think the frequency of due to the army getting smaller, the frequency of people being busier and constantly being deployed played quite a big factor on like, do I want to just sort of at the tip of a hat be sent away for another 6 months? Or do I need to sort of start looking at something that can be more stable, and sort of look out for my family too? And then once I sort of realized that when I came back from Mali, I then sort of started putting a plan into place of if I did get out, what would I be thinking of doing, finding a bit of direction, researching. I was speaking to people all the time on sort of the LinkedIn basis, and just the sort of willingness to network with people was actually quite I was actually quite amazed. Like you don't realize how many people are actually willing to take that half an hour, 45 minutes out of their day just to have a talk, like just tell me your story. Like what do you do? What do you want to do? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a field you want to go into. But people gave me sort of valuable tips. They were like, initially, don't put pressure on yourself to find the absolute best job in the world as your first job. Because if you don't, and you put pressure on yourself, your initial start to your life outside the military feels like a bit of a downer, like you failed yourself, where it shouldn't be. It should be a stepping stone and a gradual sort of path up. And that's where I'm very fortunate. I've sort of landed in a job that I've really wanted to do. I've been interested in, and I've landed in it as my first job. And I know that isn't the case for everyone. And that's obviously something to understand, that if you do leave the military and you don't get your first job the best job the first time, there are always other pathways. There's networking through those jobs. There's the ability to apply for jobs while you're out. So yeah, and like just sort of valuable lessons like that I just learned along the way from the early stages, but also having a sort of plan from the early stages, not leaving it till your resettlement period, the end of your resettlement period to do your courses. I done my sort of project management courses within my first 2 months of signing off because I knew those first 2 months are, if I can sort of set the tone from there, the last 6 months I can not relax, but I can sort of taper down. So I'm not sort of tapering down in the beginning, and then at the end, it's a mad rush of courses, trying to find work, things like that. That's also just a really big plan that you need to sort of make sure that's facilitated too.
How supportive was your chain of command when you hit that kind of year resettlement point? Did you manage to take the time that you needed? I mean, you obviously managed to fit in all these courses, but did you do it
Yeah.
easily within your chain of command? Did they understand that, you needed this time?
So during my resettlement time, like when I first signed off and I went and done my courses, there was actually like a month, I think it was like 5 weeks that they asked me to go to Liberia to run a short-term training team. And I sort of happily accepted because they had no one else, and I was like, I'll go to North Africa and I'll do this, like, but just have an understanding that when I get back, I need to sort of prioritize myself. And I think you've always just got to go into the situation where you, if you're stubborn, people get stubborn back. But if you sort of like, okay, if I need to go and do that, I'll happily do that. But in return, is this all right? So it is a bit of a to and fro as a sort of a game, but both parties have to sort of be willing to accept one another and sort of, if I've got a course on this week, unfortunately I won't be here, but I'll happily go and do this for you the next week and things like that. So I think it was just grown up conversations that needed to be had. And if they had early, so sort of early on, it's not like a week before, oh, I've got a course for next week. then it is more acceptable because people can plan for it in the agendas and things like that. So my chain of command were extremely, extremely helpful sort of in that way, but I did have to facilitate that with the conversations in the beginning. And that comes back to if you have a solid plan from the beginning and you can relay that plan to them, then it's so much easier for them to understand, and then they'll know exactly where you're available and where you aren't.
I think that's really good advice for anyone who's probably highly inspired by what you've just said to follow in your footsteps. You mentioned you worked on a tech project while in the army,
Yeah.
and that inspired you. Which project were you working on?
So it was actually a project to deliver a sighting system into the army. And all it was like we had to go and sort of deliver like lessons learned on it. And then while we were sort of delivering all that, the sort of procurement process was unfolding, and just like listening into that, learning from that every day of where it is, what sort of it needs to go through, who it needs to be signed off by, and things like that. So that really got me into like the sort of the project management side of life, because they are external project managers that come in to do that. And when I was speaking to them, and I spent I think it was like 2 weeks with one of the project managers on it while I was on a course, and just learning from them, being like, oh, like this is what we have to go through, these are the different steps. And I was like, to be fair, the project management aspects, I know it is quite a people like it's quite popular for when they leave. And I do think the skills are very much transferable, as in, as long as you're organized, you can sort of manage people in the correct way. Now, the correct way is definitely not always being there and screaming and shouting, which is not the way I sort of manage. I'm sort of a facilitator, understand what people need to work harder, and sort of what drives a team. If you have that sort of attitude towards people, you can't go that far wrong. And I think because of the transferable skills, it's not like I left the army to become a pilot, something totally out of my sort of scope. I've left the army to go and do something that's reasonably within my scope because I've done it for quite a few years. So I understand people. It's just sort of understanding the processes and organizations that you're involved with.
That makes sense. And when you got that kind of vision is probably the wrong word, but when you started building a picture of where you wanted to be in the future, how did TechVets come onto your radar?
So I was quite fortunate that one of my friends, Andy Lambert, he runs the Netcompany. He's a manager within Netcompany. And he sort of pointed me in the direction and said, well, Netcompany is part of TechVets, and we sort of do deliver quite a lot of training. And then I went and signed up to TechVets. And I spoke to Colin for a bit for the first time, and he sort of pointed me in the right direction. And then I sort of just got signed up to the courses as and when they were. And the thing is, with TechVet, it's such a great sort of opportunity, because it's not just for service leavers that are just fresh out. There's obviously the veterans part of it, the families part of it. So what the all the different various companies as part of TechVets do is obviously so much, like, it's appreciated by everyone. And I suppose it's just getting people like into the tech vets, ensuring people are aware of it, boosting their awareness. Because most people now, as soon as they sort of say, "Oh, I'm signing off," and they have a chat, because I have a few people that are thinking about it, I point them into tech vets to be like, it's a great opportunity. If you want to go and do cybersecurity, they got so much for it. If you want to go and learn like Azure, any sort of Microsoft certifications, that's all there. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. And the thing is, who wouldn't want to take sort of free training to sort of improve yourself? So yeah, so that's where the sort of TechVets came in, and I've never looked back. I still do TechVet stuff now. Like last weekend, not last weekend, the weekend before, I done a Microsoft Labs course for an afternoon, and it's just small things like that put make you that 1% better, and that's what makes the difference.
So do you think TechVets are going to get an influx of QDG members soon?
Well, I hope so. I don't know if they're all going to sign off at the same time, but if they do sort of, if they do sign off and want a bit of advice, I'll definitely give them some advice and point them in that direction.
Brilliant. And in all of this, we haven't really mentioned your partner. Um, how did they take the kind of signing off, the looking for jobs, the getting the job, kind of from where you were probably 15, 16 months ago to where you are now? How has the process been for them?
Um, I was actually quite fortunate that my wife was in the nursing corps, and that's where I sort of met her. So because she had an understanding of the sort of military life and what it entails, she understood my journey of being in the army, and she was okay with that. And she was more than okay. She was happy with that. But I think after the tour without R&R, it did become a bit much, especially with the 2-month-old to 10-month-old. Um, and then my sort of the process of me leaving, signing off, because she's also been through that, she sort of understood where I was. Initially, before having work and stuff like that, it always plays in your mind, like, am I gonna get a job? Like, am I good enough? Those sort of questions you do ask yourself. And I say to everyone, it's an absolute natural thing. Everyone goes through that, like the stressfulness, especially with today's sort of the climate of today's sort of economy. Things are getting expensive, and jobs are sort of getting scarce. Although if you put hard work into it, like you'll be fine. But throughout, she's been so supportive. Honestly, she's been absolutely brilliant. So any like courses that I wanted to do or anything like that, she's sort of driven me forward. Like, oh yeah, you can do this. Like, just sort of reassuring me, like you will get a job. You'll be fine. Like, just think about what's on the other side. Um, so really good. We've never sort of had any sticking points where it's like, I don't know what you're doing, why are you leaving the army? She's always been super supportive of it and understanding too. Like, I understood sort of if I was gonna leave, my time is now, and to sort of try and make the best of it, which I think I have.
Absolutely. And she sounds like a legend, by the way.
Yeah,
And I
it
guess
is, I promise you. She's had to deal
supporting
with
you
me, so
supporting you through that time. I think that's amazing that she's taken that stance. And it obviously the winning combination of your drive to get those courses done and that supportive home life has led you to where you are now. And looking to the future with Netcompany and beyond, what courses have you got your eye on to do in the future?
so I think sort of after even doing that week-long course last week, like I want to have a sort of bigger technical understanding, um, actually sort of hands-on technical understanding of building solutions and so forth. Just because I think if you can strike the manager with a lot of technical solution balance, you always have a massive input onto the sort of development of the solution. Now, I'm not saying I want to be the manager that's constantly hands-on and telling people how to build it, but while they're building it, if you have a good idea, you can sort of input that in. Oh, what about this? Have you thought about this? Is this going to work? Things like that. So I think for my next few years of learning the ropes and understanding, I'm gonna sort of drive myself to have a better technical understanding, just to sort of set me up. And then where I go from there's so many different routes within Netcompany, and the availability just to sort of switch from the project management side of life to learning a bit of sort of the development side of life. There's opportunities for that. So I'm just sort of understanding the project management part of it now, which is definitely, I've got so much to learn still. But it's trying to get a bit more of that technical side of life so that I'm sort of well balanced.
That sounds like a really good plan. And if there's any courses within TechVets that you can take to support that, or if you can think of any that we don't have yet that we need to bring into TechVets, then let us know.
Oh, definitely.
For listeners, if they want to get in touch with you and pick your brain and get some advice,
Sure.
are you on the TechVets Discord platform?
Oh yeah, I am. So I'm on TechVets, the Discord platform. I'm on LinkedIn. So just reach out at any point and give me a shout, and I'm more than happy to sort of support people, answer questions, see what I've done. I'm never one to say you have to go and do this, but I'll give them advice of what I've done, and hopefully they can make their choices from there. And sort of hopefully set them up for success. If they can even just take 5% of what I'm saying away, then and that sets them up for the success, then my job's sort of done. And I'm absolutely more than happy to support anyone that's looking to go through the process, that hasn't gone through it, always is in the process, be that talk about TechVets or just talk about signing off in general, of the sort of thoughts of, oh, I'm not going to get a job, oh, do I need to sign back on, those sorts of thought process that everyone goes through. So yeah, I'd be absolutely more than happy.
That's brilliant. And what's your handle on Discord?
I'm not too sure. Can I send it to you after?
Yeah, of course. We'll put it in the link of the podcast so that people can find you, and also your LinkedIn so that people can reach out to you. But
Yeah, absolutely.
Don, it's brilliant. It's been brilliant talking to you, and it would be great to catch up in 6 months' time and see where you are and what plethora of courses you've managed to get under your belt in that time.
No, definitely. And honestly, yeah, let's do this in 6 months, and I'm sure I'll be in a different space saying different things, but it is really enjoyable. It's a sort of a good ride to be on. It's exciting. There's new things happening every day. I sort of I learn every day. I go into work being like, okay, I know sort of what I'm talking about, but it's the learning part of it that intrigues me. Like, what can I learn today? How can I do this? Like, who can help me talk to different people, create different sort of links in work, so that I know now if I need to talk to someone in the sort of marketing or finance, like you find your niche people that you go to, your go-to people. So I'm still in that sort of process, but it's an absolutely enjoyable thing, just learning from everyone.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I think your story will really inspire other people to either take the leap and sign off, or jump into TechVets and explore the huge amount of courses that are there.
Absolutely. And I fully support that, especially the TechVets part of it. There's so much opportunity available, and as I said, it is free, and if you are looking to sort of get out and set yourself up, jump in as early as you can and try and get ahead of the game.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Don. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening. If you like listening to Don and would like to reach out to him, just look in the description below for his details on Discord and LinkedIn. And if you want to find out how you can retrain like Don, just go to www.techvets.co and register as a member, and you'll be able to jump in and have a look at all of the courses that are available for free to veterans, service leavers, and forces family members. Thank you for joining us.